I'm Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board-certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. All right. Hey, everybody. Jen Malb with Nurse Connect podcast. Super excited to have Abby here with me today. Thank you, Abby. Would you just get us started with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Abby Keller. I'm a nurse and a nurse coach here in Virginia. I have worked in oncology nursing for 10 years now, oncology and stem cell transplant, and I help empower people touched by cancer,
Mm,
patients and loved ones.
that is a tough place to be in sometimes. How did you get into oncology?
I really found oncology in nursing school. I went into nursing school fresh. I really had no concept of what nursing was
Yeah.
until I was in school.
Oh,
And
wow.
every class I was like, oh, that's what we do. Okay.
That's awesome.
um, and my fourth year of nursing school, I just happened to have my clinical rotation in oncology. And I had this really impactful moment with
Mm,
um, a man that I will call Frank
okay.
because he loves Sinatra.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I came in for clinical. I had done all my prep work, and um, I knew all of Frank's, information. I was ready to talk to him, and Frank was actively dying.
Mm,
And I had never seen that before. I had never been exposed to death before. I was 21 years old, and
yeah.
I had really no concept of what it was. And my clinical day that day was just, I can't remember, it was 6 or 8 hours of just sitting with
Mm,
him and his wife. We chatted, his wife and I, about what he loved. And I remember he loved fried chicken and mashed potatoes. I remember he
mm,
was a volunteer firefighter. I remember just little details about him and just talking with his wife about what made Frank Frank.
mhm.
And that was so special to me. And I really didn't know what to do or how to help. So I would fluff pillows. I was just a nursing student,
Mhm,
you don't know what to do. But I just remember feeling like that was really special. And
mhm,
I felt so moved that the next day after my classes, I went back to the hospital, and I saw Frank again, and he was still actively dying. And I talked to his wife and I gave her a letter just
mm.
thanking her for letting me be there with them. She introduced me to their adult children and like, oh, this is Abby. We love
Oh,
her, stuff like that. And I remember going back to, um, there was like a student event that I was going to
mhm,
later that night, and I went there and I was a little tearful, and I had a friend ask me what's wrong, and um, I had to say, Frank's dying, and they looked at me like I was crazy, like
mm,
we're just college kids, and um, maybe they don't have to confront death midweek. And
right.
that's when I realized that nursing is so different from the rest of the world. Like we're not just in our day to day stuff. We're sitting with people at the worst moment of their
Mhm,
life, or maybe not the worst, but a significant
right.
day. You know,
Yeah.
that is a huge thing for Frank and his wife, and I got to be there for it. And I think it was that moment that I realized like I don't want to just live in the day to day. I want to be
Mm,
there for the hard things. I want to be there for the big moments. And I felt really privileged to be able to be a part of that. It was such an honor.
yeah.
And I think I put as much in her letter. Um, and a couple weeks later, I got a letter from her. I
Mm,
think to the nursing school. She wrote to me, and she actually said that I had really touched something for her, and they had the pastor read my letter at Frank's
Oh,
funeral. And I had no idea. I was blown away. I was blown away
beautiful.
that I could make any difference in that situation. I just sat there really. But it just really made me believe that presence is one of the most precious gifts that we can give. Um, and that we don't always know how much we're going to mean to someone or what our presence can mean in those hard moments. So that's what made me realize that I think I want to do oncology because it just felt different to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. Because, like you said, sometimes you don't know what to do, but even just being there with somebody in that moment, clearly it had an impact on you and your
Yeah.
career and your life. And
Yeah.
you obviously had an impact on Frank's family too. And that's really incredible. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I still have her letter and I wish that
Mhm.
I could like tell her, 10 years later, did you know that Frank made a big impact on me, in my life
Yeah.
path.
Yeah. Oh, it would be so interesting to reconnect with Frank's family because I think that
Mm.
would really bring a lot of joy to know that that moment really moved your life forward into this
Yeah.
beautiful career that you have now. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And then it wasn't till later that I realized like that I love oncology just from an intellectual level. I can be a little nerdy sometimes and I
Yeah.
just find it so fascinating that oncology really encompasses all of the specialties, like it's all the systems. Like
Hmm.
oncology is neuro, it's GI, it's cardiac, it's
Yeah.
infectious disease, it's GYN, it's all
Yeah, you're right. I never
the
really thought of it
systems
that way.
and it really keeps you on your toes.
For sure.
We have complex regimens, we have rare infections, we have just weird molecular
Hmm.
stuff. I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So,
That is
um,
so neat.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until later that I learned like, oh, I really am into this.
Yeah. And you said you did stem cell transplant or a bone marrow transplant? I mean, yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
I have a personal story about that. I have a sweet niece, Sophia. She is just a little spitfire. I just love her. But when she was born, they realized that she was born with SCID,
Oh,
severe
wow.
combined immunocompromised disorder, but basically had no immune system. And so I want to say it was that she was in isolation immediately. It was close to 2.5 to 3 months in isolation down in San Francisco. But she had a bone marrow transplant from my other niece. Her full blood sister was 100%
Mm.
match. And that
Oh,
was
that's
my
great.
first really experience in that kind of world. I had really little to no oncology or bone marrow transplant exposure really in my career because I work mostly ER. And so
Yeah.
just to see, I mean, just how incredible it is, like you said, with multi systems and different things
Mm.
and the just being my other niece being able to be the donor and then to
Yeah.
recipient to her sister, and she is totally healthy, like no
Oh, that's so
issues, did not
great.
have to take anti-rejection meds, like I mean truly a walking miracle. It is just
Mm.
really remarkable what you all can do in this that world for sure.
Mm. Yeah, that's so awesome. I'm glad for her.
Yeah, yeah, me too. She's 9 I think now, and just eats crap off the floor. She's amazing. She really is.
Oh,
She's just
good.
such a love bug. Yeah. So tell me some other cool things that you do in this space because like you said, it has a lot of cool scientific fun stuff. And then you also got the side where it can probably be, I mean, rewarding, but also do you find that there's burnout in this space or compassion fatigue because of the environment you're in? Do you work with any nurses around that or people?
Yeah, I think that it is easy for nurses to get burnt out,
Hmm.
or just seeing compassion fatigue or
Hmm.
moral distress. I think
Hmm.
for myself, I left my home job about 2 years ago. I was getting, I would say, a little crispy. I wouldn't say
Hmm.
burnt out, but a little
Yeah.
crispy. And it wasn't really the patients or the work. I still loved
Okay.
the patients. I loved the work. Um, it was during the pandemic, and it was just not being able to do your job the way that you want to do your job. Like, I know that we can be doing better for these patients. I know that we could be caring for them more deeply and more thoroughly than we're
Mm-hmm.
being given the time and the support to
Mm.
do. So, um, I think that that's really what was the catalyst for my starting my coaching practice,
Beautiful.
because of those gaps in oncology care
Mm-hmm.
when people are just kind of shuffled through, and maybe they're not given the time that they need to really fully
Mm-hmm.
process what's happening to them. They're not given the education that they need,
Yeah.
or the reinforcement or the hand holding, to
Mm-hmm.
really walk them through. This is major, major stuff that you're going
Mm-hmm.
through when you're going through chemo, surgeries, stem cell transplant. It's a lot. And without having the support, and it's not because the providers don't want to give the support, it's because there's no time, or it's
Right.
because there's no resources. So the nurses and the doctors, they're trying, but doctors only have 15 minutes to get patients through, and
Wow.
nurses have way too many patients. We're running around and like, okay, here's some pamphlets. I don't really have time to go over it, but like, it'll explain your chemotherapy for you.
Hmm.
Stuff like that that
Yeah.
leaves people with a lot of questions. Um, and it leaves people feeling like um, they aren't sure of how to move forward. And it puts a lot of responsibility on the patient to advocate for themselves,
Yeah.
because nobody's going to, um, we try, but it's hard to be able to teach them all the things that they don't know, because the learning curve's very steep with
Yes.
oncology, and it's really hard, to ask good questions when you don't know what you don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
we put patients in and their caregivers in a position where they're forced to advocate for themselves, and they don't even know what they need
Yeah.
or
Wow.
what they
That's so
want.
overwhelming.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. What are a couple of areas that you would suggest if somebody's newly diagnosed that where do you start? I mean, is Google your friend or your foe in these situations?
That's so hard.
Yeah.
I would really, um, people say do your research. I don't think that Google maybe is the best place for doing that research. But of course, that's where we all go first. Um, Talking to your oncologist, and um, your oncology nurses as much as you can.
Mm,
Ask a million questions,
good.
as silly as they might feel, because maybe we're using words that you don't know. Like, okay, we're going to talk
Hmm.
about your neutrophils. Your neutrophils are low, so da 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 da. Well,
Yeah. What
what's a
does that even
neutrophil?
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes we use our medical jargon
Right.
in ways that are not. It's not helpful, for education. So I think asking as many questions as you can, um, and then seeking out your resources. There are other resources available, and um, I feel like that's where a nurse coach can really come in handy. A nurse coach who
Yeah.
knows the system of, like, they know the multidisciplinary team and how to utilize them. So like, if you
Yeah.
have questions, we can talk to the pharmacist. If you have about your medications, if you need physical therapy support, if you need social work support, if you need casework or things like that, that hopefully are being made available,
Yeah.
through your cancer center. But um, yeah, being able to utilize those to the full extent, instead of feeling like you have to deal with everything on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, that it can be. I just have having some friends have gone through it and family. It is so overwhelming 'cause you don't always know the right way to go. And I think as a nurse, people often come to me and, well, what should I do for my treatment? I'm like, that is not my specialty. Like, I do not want to give you the wrong information. So I always punt them back to their care team. And as much as I'd
Yeah.
like to help, I don't want to give the wrong information or false hope or false, what any incorrect information, I think, is really what my fear is around that. So
Yeah.
having somebody like you who's a specialist in this area that, or can point them in the direction of the resources they need, that could be a real gift in this
Yeah.
difficult time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming for those with diagnoses, and it's really overwhelming for their family members.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can come with just huge life changes that
Mm-hmm.
are difficult to navigate. Sometimes you have to take time off of work. Sometimes um, it can lead to uh, change in family roles, family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
That can come with a lot of feelings, guilt, conflict. There's a
Yeah.
lot that comes with cancer that is more than just making it to your appointments.
Right.
And I think that that's where I really can help, not just in the like informational piece, but also in the
Mm-hmm.
processing. And so, like, if you're having these things that come up, you might not feel like that's your oncologist is maybe the person to talk to about it. So you
Yeah.
don't know who to talk about it with, of like
Right.
all of these life changes that came with your cancer, um, or your loved one's cancer. Um, who do you talk to about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing about nurse coaching is not only do you have the clinical expertise, but coaching in itself is really a holistic approach, right? So it's not just the physical body, it's the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the sexual, the financial, all
Yes.
different realms. And
Hmm.
as the nurse coach, you can help kind of tie those pieces together because I think that, we just think, oh, it's a physical illness, we fix this and then it goes away. Well, no, like there's real trauma that can last with these diagnoses and long after you're actually healed or in remission from it, you're
Yes.
not the same person.
No.
And so how do you deal with that psychologically, emotionally, mentally, as well as physically? Because that's hard. Do you have any suggestions around that? If around survivorship, I guess is kind of where I'm going with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
How do
that's
you
that's
kind of
great
work on that?
actually. Yeah, so I serve people who have been touched by cancer. That's how I like to word it. Not everybody likes the term survivor, but
Okay.
anybody who has had a diagnosis that um, they're either um, in treatment or they're completed treatment, they're cancer free, or they need maintenance therapy. Some cancers
Mm-hmm.
really don't go in remission. You just have to
That's a
treat
great
them
point.
forever. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of emotions that come with
Yeah.
sometimes the term um, like I beat cancer or something like
Mhm.
that. Some people can live with cancer like it's a chronic illness,
Yeah.
but they might never be cancer free. But it can really impact you down the road, and sometimes even more so emotionally after treatment's over,
Mm.
um, because sometimes you're just in survival mode. You're putting one foot in front of the other while you're in treatment. You're going through all these appointments. People are checking on you. People are bringing casseroles over, and then when you get through chemo, then they're like, "You did it!
Yeah.
Congratulations!" And you're fine, right? You're gonna go back to
Yeah.
work. Your hair's gonna grow back, and then that's when you have time to slow down and be like, "What just happened
Just
to
happened.
me?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the emotional processing, some people comes later, and that
Mm-hmm.
can be hard, because that's the time that you're sent back to your community oncologist or your PCP, and you don't have all the specialized support anymore, um, to help you figure out how to move your life forward. How do you want your
Wow.
life to look after this experience? Do you want it to be the same as before? Do you want to go
Right.
back to normal? Because a lot of people, they can't get back to normal. They have
Yeah.
profound life changes, and changes to their body, changes to their health, and then also just mental changes. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go back to what they had before. They want to go
Right.
forward. They want life to be more beautiful than it was
Mm.
before. Um, and so I can help people process what they want and how to move forward.
Oh, that's really awesome. I don't think I really gave that much thought before. I have to say, because I think you're right. From an outsider perspective, you think, oh, you've gotten through treatment. It's all good
Hmm.
now, right?
Yeah.
Um, because from a medical model,
Hmm.
that's our goal. Like
Hmm.
we get you out of the hospital, get you through that surgery, we get you past that
Hmm.
treatment, and then I don't see you anymore. So you have such a great perspective um, of the patient and their family of like life. It's going on. It has to go forward. But then what does that look like now? And how am I different, or how do I want to be? And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, just looking at
Yeah.
the whole person and
Yeah.
what their future might look like, how to deal with body changes.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes self-esteem can be an issue.
Hmm.
And yeah, sexual health can be a lasting issue. Long-term maintenance, especially hormonal therapies, can have a big
Yeah.
impact. You can go into early menopause, or men, if they have to take hormone therapy, they have certain changes as well that
Hmm.
can be really distressing. So sometimes
Yeah.
that long term, as well as the fear and um, vigilance that comes with monitoring for relapse or monitoring
Yeah.
for secondary cancers. In addition to that anxiety, you'll have all these other changes. So
Yeah.
there's a lot there.
There is. There is. Thank you for being open to sharing that aspect of it, because I think, yeah, I don't think a lot of people really that aren't actively being touched by cancer are probably not really considering those elements.
Mm.
Yeah. What else would you like to share in this space that you think would be helpful for people that are touched by cancer in some way, whether they're a partner or actively going through treatment themselves or anything in that space?
Um, I think I would say um, there's a lot there's a lot of toxic positivity around cancer.
Mm,
Um, and I want to say it's okay to grieve.
mm,
Um, it's okay to take your time to grieve, and it's okay to be upset. This isn't the only thing that I think people should be focusing on. It's just what
yeah,
came up in the
yeah,
moment. But I think it's okay to grieve um, the major life changes
sure,
that come with it for you and your loved one. Um, and if there's a lot of like, you can do it, you're a warrior, it's true, you can do it, but you're allowed to be sad too if you want to be
sure,
sad.
yeah,
And then you can figure out how you want to move your life forward.
perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to see, is there anything else you want to speak into the space today? It's been so lovely chatting with you.
Ooh, thank you for having me. I would say just if anybody out there is um, being touched by cancer, you or a loved one, cancer's in your household, and you want to talk about it, come find me. You can come find me on my website or on Instagram or Facebook.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Abby. I really appreciate it. And we will chat with you all soon.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.